All right, so you want to dive into how those mind-bending sounds of the 60s still echo through the music we listen to today, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty wild when you think about it.
We're talking about a whole sonic earthquake back then.
Definitely.
And you're looking for that hidden track, the one that connects those psychedelic pioneers to the music blasting in your headphones right now.
Right.
So let's drop the needle on this thing and crank up the volume, because we're about to unpack a whole crate of sonic explorers.
Sounds good to me.
All right, so picture this. It's the 1960s rock and roll shaking things up, and suddenly there's this whole new sound emerging and leading the charge. Bands like the Grateful Dead and Jefferson Airplane.
What's fascinating is these bands weren't just riding the wave of change. They were practically the ones creating the tsunami,
Totally. They weren't just making music, they were crafting experiences.
Exactly. These weren't just concerts you went to. This was music you had to live.
It's like their sound was too big to fit on a record.
Exactly. It was about being there in the moment, feeling the music wash over you.
No wonder those shows are still legendary. Okay, so we're talking about the Grateful Dead here.
Right.
A band practically synonymous with those marathon jam sessions.
Oh, yeah.
But to really get that, we got to talk about the acid test, right?
Absolutely.
We're not just talking about your average gig here.
No, not at all. These were experiences.
This was the Grateful Dead. As the house band for these legendary LSD-fueled parties organized by Ken Kesey.
It was a whole scene, man.
Like giant art happenings where music art and reality itself kind of melted into this crazy kaleidoscope.
It was about pushing those boundaries,
Yeah.
challenging every preconceived notion of what art and music could be.
It was about more than just the drugs, although they definitely played a part.
Of course, but it wasn't just about getting high. It was about tapping into something deeper, something beyond the everyday.
Yeah, using music as this tool for exploration, right?
Exactly.
Which makes sense when you think about the Dead and those extended jams. They
Yeah.
were like sonic explorers themselves.
Oh, absolutely. Their music was like a trip in itself.
It wasn't about sticking to some rigid structure. It was about embracing the unexpected.
Precisely. They were tapping into that unpredictable, mind-bending nature of a psychedelic experience.
So like they translated that feeling into sound.
Exactly. And what's even more interesting is that even though both the Grateful Dead and Jefferson Airplane were part of this psychedelic movement, they each had their own unique flavor.
Oh yeah, for sure. They were both exploring similar territory, but with different maps.
Right. Like the Damon Dead, they were all about improvisation.
Oh, totally. They would just take a song and run with it sometimes for like 20 minutes.
Exactly. They embraced the unknown, the spontaneous creation of music in the moment.
It's like that quote from Jerry Garcia. We're like licorice.
Haha. Yeah.
Not everyone likes licorice, but the people who like licorice really like licorice.
That's such a perfect analogy for their sound.
Right. It's not for everybody, but if it grabs you...
It consumes you.
Exactly. Then you have Jefferson Airplane on the other side of the psychedelic coin.
Right.
Maybe a little more structured musically,
It'd be a touch.
but no less impactful when it came to exploring those altered states.
Oh, absolutely.
And they really capped into that desire to challenge perceptions of reality, didn't they?
Oh, 100%. I mean, think about White Rabbit for a second.
Classic.
With its Alice in Wonderland imagery and that trippy, swirling sound.
It's like falling down a rabbit hole every time you hear it.
Exactly. That song became an anthem for 60s psychedelia.
It's like they captured that feeling in a bottle, or on vinyl in their case.
Right.
But it's important to remember both bands were part of something much bigger than just music, weren't they?
Oh, yeah, for sure. They were key players in this whole counterculture movement that was happening.
They were challenging authority, questioning societal norms.
And creating communities built around shared ideals.
Which is, I think, a big part of why their music still resonates with people today.
I agree.
It's not just about the music itself, it's about what that music represents.
Exactly. It's about that yearning for something more, that search for transcendence.
Right. And that's something that speaks to people no matter what generation they're from.
I mean, it's timeless,
Totally. All right, so we've got these sonic pioneers, these architects of altered sounds.
Right.
But how does that lead to, say, Tame Impala blasting in your headphones on a Tuesday afternoon?
Yeah, that's a great question.
What's the through line connecting those eras? What's the through line connecting those eras?
It's like psychedelia opened up this whole new way of thinking about music. You know what I mean?
Totally. It's like they ripped up the rule book,
Exactly.
threw out those traditional song structures and said, hey, let's just see where the sound takes us.
It's about embracing those unexpected twists and turns, those moments where you go, whoa, I did not see that coming.
Which reminds me of a band you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
The one that's always keeping you on your toes musically.
Okay.
They have that same knack for sonic surprises, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And it's not a coincidence.
Hmm.
Kevin Parker, the mastermind behind Tame Impala, he's been super open about how those psychedelic pioneers influenced his music.
Right. Like he's carrying that torch.
He's taken that spirit of experimentation, those sonic textures, and woven them into his own sound.
It's like he's creating these sonic tapestries, right?
Exactly.
Because albums, Lonerism and Currents, they're like sonic mood rings, you know?
Love that description.
You listen to them, and you're not just hearing the music, you're feeling it.
It's about tapping into that deeper level of experience that psychedelia unlocked, that sense of expanding your mind, exploring the inner landscape through sound.
Right. It's like a journey inward.
And what's fascinating is how that feeling translates, even though the tools have changed so drastically since the 60s.
But yeah, back then it was all about guitars and drums.
Yeah.
Maybe a sitar if you were feeling adventurous.
Exactly. Now you've got artists like Kevin Parker using digital production to create these incredibly intricate soundscapes.
But that core psychedelic spirit, that yearning for something transcendent, it's still there.
100%. It's like a secret message passed down through generations of artists.
And it's not just Tame Impala, right?
Oh, no. You can hear those echoes in tons of genres now.
Right. Like think about electronic music.
Absolutely. Especially subgenres like downtempo or psychedelic trance. They're all about creating these vast, immersive sonic journeys.
It's like the music itself becomes a landscape you can get lost in.
Exactly. And that word journey is crucial here. It's not just about passively listening. It's about actively engaging with the music, letting it wash over you, taking you on an inward journey as much as getting you moving on the dance floor.
It's like those long... Totally. It's about letting the music carry you away, blurring the lines between listener and participant.
100%.
All right, get ready for this one because this was where things get really interesting.
Ready. Okay, I'm intrigued.
We're talking about hip-hop.
Hip-hop? Really?
Yeah, you might not think of it as the most obvious connection.
It's not the first genre that comes to mind when I think psychedelia.
Right. But when you think about it, hip-hop is all about pushing boundaries, challenging expectations, blending genres.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
It's got that same psychedelic ethos.
That freedom to experiment, to create something entirely new.
Exactly. And you can hear it in a lot of modern hip-hop. Like, take Kid Cudi, for instance.
Okay.
His Man on the Moon albums, they're practically dripping with psychedelic vibes.
Yeah.
The spacey production, the introspective lyrics, it's all about exploring the inner cosmos.
Right. And even artists like A.P. Rocky, he's incorporated those trippy visuals, those mind-bending sonic textures into his music and videos.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It just goes to show you how far-reaching this psychedelic influence really is. So we've journeyed from those sonic landscapes of the 60s to the modern music influenced by those psychedelic pioneers.
Yeah.
But it's not just about the music, is it?
Yeah.
Remember how we were talking about your interest in the visuals?
Oh, yeah.
How those mind-bending sounds spilled over into album art, concert posters, that whole vibe.
Totally. You can't really separate psychedelic music from the visual art that went hand in hand with it. They were like two sides of the same coin.
Absolutely, like those iconic album covers.
Oh, yeah.
They were like portals into another dimension.
Right.
Street Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, for instance.
Classic.
That explosion of color, the surreal imagery.
Exactly.
Even if you'd never heard a single note of the music, you'd know you were in for something wild.
Exactly. Or take Jefferson Airplanes After Bathing at Baxter's.
Oh, yeah, another good one.
Those swirling, almost liquid-like fonts, they just scream psychedelia.
Totally. It's like the visuals were an extension of the music itself.
Right. It was a way to represent those sonic explorations visually.
And then there are the concert posters from that era.
Don't even get me started on the concert posters.
I know you're a big fan. What is it about them that speaks to you?
It's those incredible artists like Wes Wilson and Victor Moscoso.
Yeah. They were masters of their craft.
They were creating these incredible pieces with those mind-bending fonts and vibrant colors. It was like they were capturing the essence of the psychedelic experience on paper.
It's like those posters were mini festivals in themselves. And you can see their influence even now.
Yeah.
Right, like at Coachella or Burning Man, where visual art is just as important as the music.
Absolutely. It's like that psychedelic spirit went underground for a bit and then resurfaced even bigger and bolder.
Totally. like a psychedelic renaissance. And it makes perfect sense when you think about it.
Exactly.
Psychedelia has always been about creating immersive experiences,
Right.
experiences that engage all the senses.
It's not just about listening to the music, it's about feeling it, seeing it, living it.
Exactly. And those legendary Pink Floyd light shows were early examples of that, weren't they?
Oh, absolutely. They understood that music was just one part of this bigger psychedelic equation.
They were pioneers of that immersive concert experience,
It was about transporting the audience to another world.
creating a whole world on stage.
Exactly.
And it's like those concert posters evolved into whole festivals, right? Like Burning Man, for instance.
Oh, yeah. Burning Man is a perfect example of that. With its emphasis on self-expression, radical inclusion, and communal effort.
It's about creating a temporary community.
Exactly. And tapping into those same feelings of wonder and possibility that fueled those acid tests we talked about earlier.
It all comes back to that sense of community, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that we're all part of something bigger than ourselves.
And music, especially music born from that psychedelic spirit, can be such a powerful way to connect with people.
It's a universal language, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We've been on quite the journey.
From the birth of psychedelic rock to its echoes in modern music, from mind-bending album art to immersive festivals.
It's amazing to see how far it's come.
But I think the most important thing to remember is that this psychedelic spirit, this urge to explore the outer limits of sound and consciousness, it's still going strong.
Oh, yeah. It's not just a relic of the past. It's a living, breathing thing.
Exactly. And it's evolving all the time.
And everyone's invited to the party.
That's the beauty of it. So the next time you hear a song that makes you feel like you're tumbling down a rabbit hole, remember those psychedelic pioneers who first mapped out that territory?
They paved the way.
They might have been chasing a different kind of sound, but that spirit of exploration, that sense of boundless possibility, that's something we can all tap into.
100%. It's about opening your mind to new possibilities.
Exactly. And who knows what incredible sonic landscapes we'll discover along the way.